Really what I want to focus on is these connections between these new species that are coming in and the quality of our water. And they're surprisingly strong and oftentimes somewhat counterintuitive. We are amazingly capable at changing the nature of the planet Earth. For the past millions of years, most species just pretty much sat in one place. And then in the last 200 years, we've basically just shaken things up, and we've given species from all around the world the chance to live in new places. So a little mussel that lives in the Caspian Sea now has the chance to live in Lake Mendota. It's unlike anything we've seen for millions of years. And these invasive species can have some pretty big and surprising impacts on water quality right here in the Madison Lakes. As we think about moving forward and trying to protect and improve the quality of the water here, we need to include some of these ecological factors as well. So our protagonists today are three. The first one, spiny water flea. The clarity of Lake Mendota has actually been worse since the arrival of this species. I will just start by passing around some spiny water fleas. These are spiny water fleas from Lake Mendota. So my question, how exactly does this introduced predatory spiny crustacean change our water quality? We all think about nutrients as determining how much algae is in the water. Generally speaking, if there's low nutrients, in other words, not a lot of phosphorus out there, algae grow pretty slowly. Now, let's look at another situation where we have high nutrients. This is what's happening out in Lake Mendota. We tend to see fast growth rates. But then we add into the picture our little friend, Daphnia. So this is Daphnia. Have a good look. This is your friend. Daphnia is a tiny crustacean that is native to these waters, and they feed on algae. And we think of Daphnia as a grazer, sort of like an aquatic cow. If they are abundant, can eat that algae about as fast as it grows. So there are conditions where you can have a lot of nutrients, but you still don't get those massive overgrowth of algae. So what has been going on with Daphnia since spiny water flea got in? Basically, what's happening here is this. The spiny water flea appears to be influencing the quality of the water because we have this broader food web. It's not just about nutrients and algae, but there's all this stuff that sort of builds on top of that food web. Well, let's add something to the mix, spiny water flea. They feed on Daphnia, and if they're abundant, they can actually knock populations of Daphnia down. With Daphnia populations down, you can get more algae. So they appear to have caused decreased water clarity, and this is a change that's ecological. It does not have anything to do with the nutrient loading coming from the watershed. This is about the interactions between the species that are out there. Here are some zebra mussels. Many of you are familiar with zebra mussels because they've been a pretty high-profile invasive species. Eventually, I would expect them to establish in the Madison Lakes. They are here in a sense in that they've been introduced, but they haven't taken on a fully blown population. I think we're pretty fortunate they haven't really taken hold. They live on the bottom, okay, so they're attached to rocks, and they're filtering out this free-floating algae. What happens then is the water gets clearer, you get more light going to the bottom, and light goes to greater depths in the lake. They also release a lot of nutrients right near the bottom. And the result is something that looks like this. You get bottom scum. And in lakes that get invaded by zebra mussels, the bottom is sort of coated with this green, scummy mat. Moving on to our third protagonist, common carp have been here for an extremely long time, well over 100 years. They kick up bottom sediments and nutrients into the water column, and so they can often make the water become more murky. We've learned a lot about common carp through some experiments that have been done on Lake Wingra recently. When carp were removed, the water got clearer, and Eurasian water milfoil, an invasive species, basically took over the entire lake. Here's a photograph of Lake Wingra from 2012. What you see are weeds coming up to the surface, and in a lot of cases, these weeds are slimed up with this algae that are overgrowing these weed beds. But the water between these weeds is actually pretty clear. So for example, you kind of see here, there's all this scum on these weeds, but if here the water is clear and you can see down about 2 meters. Okay, so clear water. but a lot of scum and a lot of weeds. So we have to think about water quality in a slightly more sophisticated way. It's not just about clear water, because you can have clear water and still have it be aesthetically quite horrible. Really what we're talking about is lake ecology. A lot of the dialogue has been about phosphorus and nutrients and things in the watershed, but there's a lot going on in the lake itself too, the ecosystem, that is not often considered, but it can be remarkably important in determining what our lakes look like now and out into the future.